3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Oh Brother Pod. What? I didn't even get it out.
Why?
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Oh Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How's it going, Dan?
Maybe I should have said hermano
from
my amigo from the same La Madre.
So
I don't know. Yeah, I was muy mal. It was muy mal for me.
Not muy bueno.
So welcome back to the Oh Brother Podcast. It is September 24th when you're hearing this episode, and we are going to do a review of the recently released film Cry Macho, which is, of course, Clint Eastwood. And it seems like just saw this trailer and I was getting all hyped up, to see it. Anytime I see Clint in a cowboy hat, I get excited, So, but before we get into that,
he shoots really fast,
Yes, that's right. You've mentioned that on the show before. But before we dive into that, for those of you that are not currently following us, make sure that you do it. The easiest way to find all things Oh Brothers to go out to our official website, which is OHB as in brother podcast.com. That's ohbpodcast.com. And you can get access to everything Oh Brother out there, all of our social media goings on. You get access to our blog that we publish out there, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos out there. We'd appreciate it if you support us on YouTube. And if you like what we're putting out, make sure you tell our friends. You can find us on all podcast platforms. We're everywhere, folks. And don't forget,
I want to emphasize.
I'm getting to it. The socks. I know you want to talk about the socks.
No.
But don't forget the Oh Brother shop, which is Mike's favorite thing to hawk when we get on air. What was it you're going to say?
I want to emphasize the YouTube channel because it's such a different experience. Even me, I always watch it every week because I don't know what's coming.
It's a totally different medium.
It's a different show.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is different. Some stuff that gets edited out for the podcast is in the video, but it's the stuff you add in the video that makes it really fun to watch.
Yeah, it's a much more raw edition of the episode. So I tend to do a lot less editing when it comes to the YouTube channel. But yeah, check us out on YouTube. We've got a companion episode out there for every single one that we do. So
and last week we did Jaws.
We did,
and the YouTube or I guess the podcast graphic too is I am the girl swimming.
Why I knew you were going to just let the people figure this out. I'm editing this. You're so transparent sometimes. You're so predictable. Folks, okay, we're going to give kudos to Andrea Benham. I hate when you sidetrack me like this. Okay, so Andrea Benham, who does all of our artwork for our YouTube channel, does a great job. And she, and I never know what she's going to do. I say, hey, here's the lineup coming up. And she just does her magic and she comes up with something fun. And so for the Jaws episode, she worked Mike into the very famous scene in the beginning where, the naked woman is in the ocean, swimming around. And so Mike had fun with that. He's like, hey, I got a hot bod, and I just knew you've been talking about this for 2 days. I said, oh my God, like, here we go.
That's one of the things I like.
It's a good excuse to give Andrea some props. So I should say, we kind of, speaking of the Jaws episode, we kicked off Halloween Fest for this year with that, but we're gonna weave in and out of Halloween Fest with a couple of other films, and Cry Macho being one of those. So, the little I read about this, I know that it was based on a novel of the same name from 1975, which is the year the film starts off in. It's 79, I think, is when it starts, is when the film starts, because then it says a year later and it's 1980.
Right.
So,
right.
But it's interesting you mentioned Jaws, because this is another one of those, you go back and you see this has been in the works for years and years and years in different forms, and different people were attached to the project.
Cry Macho.
Yeah. And one of the people and they were ready to go with this in 1991, they were going to roll this version out with Roy Scheider.
Wow.
And then it got canceled. The production got canceled. So Schwarzenegger was attached to it at one point, and then he had a little bit of a snafu in the media, and his marriage went south, and so that didn't go.
Right.
So there's a couple of things like that, and I think Clint was attached to it early on at one point, but he opted out to do Deadpool. And
wow. That shows you how old it is.
Right. And he suggested Robert Mitchum, which would have been a wild version at that time. So, but anyways, so we get Clint, who is directing and producing, not writing, right? In fact, the screenplay is by Nick Schenk and N. Richard Nash, who was the novelist for Cry Macho. So anyways, at first when I saw the trailer, I thought, again, Clint in a cowboy hat. Oh, is this like the follow-up to Unforgiven or something? But clearly this was going to take a little bit of a different turn, and made me think of what was it? Bronco Billy? What was the name of that? Was it Bronco Billy?
Yeah.
Where he was a rodeo star back then too?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to real quick just set us up with the synopsis, and then we can give our take on it?
Basically, Clint Eastwood was a rodeo star in his past, and he broke his back, and while he was a rodeo star, and the guy he worked for that owned the, what do you call it, the ranch, I guess, kept him on, and he kept working for him. But the movie starts off with Clint coming to work late, and it's Dwight Yoakam. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Who's a really good actor.
Well, we mentioned him when we mentioned Sling Blade not that long ago.
And he's a good actor.
He is a good actor. He's very natural.
Really comfortable.
Very natural, yeah.
But, Clint's coming in late, and Dwight Yoakam says, "You're late." He's fed up.
He's serving him his papers.
Yeah, and he fires him.
Right.
And he says, "Get lost." And then it kind of cuts to a year later. We don't know what's been going on. And Clint comes home, and there's Dwight Yoakam in his house. And he says, his name's Mike, right? Mike Milo, is it?
Yeah. Is it Milo or Milo?
Milo.
Milo. Yeah.
Yeah. He says, "Mike, you got to do me a favor. My son is in Mexico, and his mother's mistreating him. He's in a bad situation. He's around bad people. I need you to go to Mexico and bring him home to me."
Right.
And Clint is like, call the police, get a bounty hunter. And he says, "We can't do that. There's legal reasons. I can't do it." And he says, "You owe me. You owe me, Mike. You owe me." And Clint has this look of, I do owe him something. And even though he fired him in the scene before, but this is a year later. So Clint goes into Mexico to find his son.
Yep.
And the hijinks begin.
Right. And then the rest of the film is he does find his son. Spoiler alert, folks.
Yeah.
He finds his son.
Anybody who's seen the trailer knows that.
Yeah. And the son is, kind of underground a little bit. He's mixed up in cockfighting. And so he's got this rooster name that he's named Macho. Yeah. Because he's strong and he can, he's a fighter and a winner. And so hence the title. So, the film opens, and this came out September 17th, 2021. And it was just under 2 hours. So it's kind of just about
143 was the exact
143
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And Raphael, who you mentioned, the young boys, played by Eduardo Minette, but was not familiar with him. But the opening, just, that kind of get along little doggy music that's playing. I think Will Bannister is the name of the artist that's singing that song in the beginning and in the end. Something about find a place home or find whatever it is. I thought as soon as it opened, I said, "Oh, Dad would have loved this opening." It was like real country, real cowboy. And some of again, it's Clint directing. So you got, it's sort of a no-brainer that you're going to love what you see visually.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I thought it was aptly titled Cry Macho because I wanted to shed a few tears as the film went on because I just was really let down by this film.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the critics' reviews, and it's basically, it's such a beautifully directed film. The landscape is really wonderful to view, but the story is so thin.
Yeah.
It's lacking so much substance, and it feels, for me, very often contrived.
Yeah.
Is how it felt. I just kept coming back to that word in my mind. And I was just like kind of shaking my head a little bit, and it never recovered for me. That's just kind of how it remained. Now, there are a couple of very poignant scenes.
Mm-hmm.
One in particular by Clint that takes place in a church, right?
Yeah.
When he and the boy are kind of holed out in this church. One of the finest performances, and it's fairly brief, but it's one of the finest performances by him you'll ever see. It was really something to see.
If he could have captured that emotion throughout the film, it would have really been something. And I have not read the novel. I'm not familiar with it. I don't really know the base story.
Right.
But I liked it more than you.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it, but I really hinge on recommending it. I recommend it only to Clint fans.
Well, now here's the thing, right? And here's the thing, and even then, I would caution you because I went to the theater to see it.
I know.
I could have stayed in the comfort of my home and watched it on HBO Max.
Like me.
Right. But I chose, which I was thinking about, what the experience, how different that might have been seeing it. And I will say, I watched maybe the first 10 minutes here at home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had a little something to compare it to when I was, and it clearly is to see that imagery.
Yes.
And those locations in New Mexico, directed by Clint. It's definitely nice to see that on the big screen, but
there is some great shots. I'm glad, because it is well directed. There's no question.
Beautifully.
I think one of the problems for me with the film was the male actor, the young kid who played
Eduardo Minette.
Yeah. He just, there was one scene where he's talking to Clint, and it's like supposed to be a heartbreaking scene, and he's supposed to sob, and it's just really not well acted,
contrived. It just really felt contrived, forced, and
his whole performance was stiff.
I agree, and then there was, as they're trying to make their way to the United States, it was very Batman circa 19, whatever the television series, where like foiled again, there was this one character that keeps popping up throughout the film, and all of a sudden it's an attack rooster that gets them out of trouble. I didn't buy any of that.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things I guess you should say the film is about, one of the themes, maybe more indirectly, I don't know if you'll agree with this, is, as you're getting on in years and coming to terms with what that means, and you can't help but watch Clint on film at his age in cowboy gear and not have some sort of emotions over that. This is a guy who, this Pale Rider, this is the outlaw Josie Wales for me. He was my John Wayne, where for you probably grew up more on the Searchers and, the John Ford films with John Wayne. And I know obviously you were, huge Clint fan too, but so that was almost difficult, not in a negative way against the film. It was just, I'm like, is this one of the last times I'm going to see Clinton in front of the camera?
I think for anyone watching, that has to go through your mind, because he's pretty frail. This is the most frail we've ever seen Clint on screen, and we're just not used to that. And they tried to cover it up a couple of times with bad body doubles, which I talked about in another film with somebody. You got to have some, it just wasn't believable to see him riding this horse, like, you know, like a Bronco buck in his 90s, you know?
Right.
And yeah, there was times I was kind of sad, like, you know, it's like, this just isn't the same Clint.
He was still getting the woman in the end. He was still
right.
You know, and then that was sweet and very sentimental. And, you know, like I said, there were a couple of poignant scenes, but so I think if you put it well, it can't help but go through your mind as you're watching that. So I don't know if that influenced or impacted my overall, you know, assessment of the film. But I agree with you, like the young kid, I just didn't quite hit for me.
But then, you know, when it was over, I was able to forgive some of the stuff because we're dealing with a 90-year-old man, and we're dealing with a young kid. He shouldn't be a smooth actor. That's not what he is. He's a young, you know, Mexican kid that, you know, is in all sorts of trouble and needs to be rescued. There's some questionable things with the story, especially the way it ended. It ended without resolving some things. And that bothered me, but I was kind of able to forgive most of it at the end because there's really not a Clint Eastwood movie, whether he's in it or not, that I don't like.
Well, what was it that you know, what are the takeaways with this besides the directing that you like?
Well, you picked up the best scene in the film. And there's another scene where he does a monologue that's in the trailer. It shouldn't be in the trailer when he's talking about what macho is. And, you know, that was a pretty poignant sequence too. If you listen to what he said, that, you know, it's a small monologue, but it's pretty significant about being tough and being macho. And, you know, that's not really what it is. That's not what life's about, or, you know, screw those people. But I kind of take it for what it is. This guy is in his 90s. It's amazing he's able to direct. There was one sequence where their car breaks down and they have to walk. And I don't know if this caught you, but there's a shot from behind. He shows the two of them walking with the rooster, which was amazingly well trained, because the rooster just seemed to be, you know, scripted, almost like it was animatronic.
Right.
So they're walking down the street and he cuts and they're way ahead.
Yes.
But, you know, to show that distance. And I thought to myself, did they really walk, or did he just say, cut, let's move ahead?
Get in a car. And exactly. I think I wanted to do that today. I don't know if you can tell, but I look like a cherry tomato.
Yeah, you are red.
I walked 10 miles today.
Wow.
And I probably ran a few of those miles, but yeah, I was out, you know, it was mostly cloud cover.
Yeah.
And then I get home.
That's the worst. In Florida, that's the worst time you get burned.
Yeah, I get home and I was like, oh my God, you know, it creeps up on you before you know it. You're just
starting to hurt.
No, it's, you know, I put some aloe on it. It's not that bad, but you can see that, you know,
see it on your neck.
It's pretty red, but I felt like, you know, I was thinking of Cry Macho because they did a lot of traveling, and I was like, you know, felt like I was trying to head to the United States today with a 10-mile walk. But yeah, it was, I thought of that too. That is pretty funny. That it was a nice shot that you're describing in the film. But, and again, I have no issues. I could go on and on about the directing. There's so many wonderful scenes. And again, the landscape it's a great, you know, great place to shoot.
And there's, like, if you've ever been to Mexico, there was one, they're being followed by the federales, and there's one scene where they have to lose them, And when you're out in the desert, you don't just lose, cops by taking a quick turn down. It's not believable. But in that same instance, there's some great shots. He finds this rock on a hill and sets the camera there and shows them coming around the curve. It's a really good shot. But I would say, I think a Clint Eastwood fan will like this. It's very slow paced. Don't expect to be seeing, an Unforgiven or Josie Wales or anything like that. It's very slow moving.
You do see him with a pistol in his hand at one point, but it's very quick.
Yeah.
It's very good. You mentioned earlier that, his career went south when he broke his back. And there was a really nice shot in the beginning of the film where it's kind of a tracking shot inside his home, and you're seeing different memorabilia on the wall. So it's establishing the fact that he's a rodeo champion.
Yes.
And then it
even
gets
video of him.
Well, no, it gets to this one framed picture on the wall, which is him on a bull.
Yes.
Or I guess it was a horse. Yeah, it was a horse.
Yeah, horse.
And
Bronco kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And as it's panning across to that, all of a sudden it starts to push in on it.
Yeah.
And then as you said, it comes to life.
Yes.
That was really cool. All of a sudden you're in the picture, and that was pretty nice. I thought that was a good way to establish the fact that, because you see whoever it was on that horse really took a fall off that horse.
Oh, yeah.
Probably
there's
did
no
break
question
their
that
back.
was real.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And probably, footage from when somebody got hurt.
So stuff like that. There was a lot of, at the very, very beginning, like I'm talking within the first 2 minutes, he's in his old Chevy pickup truck driving to the ranch. And you see, there's a nice tight shot of his hand, working the gear shift on the floor of the truck. And then it cuts right after that, right to like his keys swinging in the ignition. And seemed like it was one of those, like I was supposed to pick up on I don't know. I was like, was that a bottle opener? I couldn't figure it out. You see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But this is kind of an irrelevant point there. But again, just the beauty of the directing, whether it was the little details or the way he shoots that vast landscape, which is just awesome.
I'm hoping this isn't the last time we'll see him.
I hope not. You've got his whole collection behind you.
I've got everything, literally everything he's ever written, directed.
And I'm sorry, but it's the man with no name. That's what we're going with.
Yeah,
not going with this other ridiculous.
What was the trivia?
It was like the Fistful of Dollars trilogy or something.
Yeah, the Dollars trilogy.
The Dollars trilogy.
Never heard it called that until that trivia episode.
And you never will again.
And I have, and that's my video pick for the week, by the way, is Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This is the 4K extended cut. It's about 20 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And if you don't have 4K, you can get this special edition from KL Studios. They put out some really good Clint stuff. Like they've gone and remastered almost all of his movies, like Play Misty for Me and Joe Kidd, and I think I got
Mules for Sister Sarah.
They've gone through and remastered and put extras on all those Blu-rays, so they do a nice job. But
you know what they don't do a nice job on is in this film. Why is it that they still can't get the Photoshop down? There's a couple of shots. One maybe in that scene I was describing where they're showing the different pictures on his wall, and it's him as a young guy. And I'm like, okay, clearly that was him from Rawhide, and they just took his head and they did it with the kid and Dwight Yoakam. There was a picture of the two of them, and it looks so silly. It's always like they're in this real bright light in their face.
Yes.
We can't master that.
And the killer is Scott Eastwood, looks so much like him younger. Get a picture of him.
Right.
And use it.
It just bewildered that they can't figure that out.
I want to see those two in a movie.
Andrea
together.
did a better job with you as the
I know, and I'm wearing 3D glasses. So
yeah, 3D goggles for swimming. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not recommending it. I would say, okay, watch it on HBO Max, but with the disclaimers that you mentioned, where it's slow paced.
Right.
This isn't
know
Tail
what you're
Rider.
going in for. If you accept what you're going in for, if you've read the novel and you're a fan of the novel, by all means, go see it. And if you're a really big Clint fan, because I don't think you'll be disappointed in the directing, but no, it's a stiff performance by the kid. And, Clint's 93.
Yeah. And they were making attempts at humor in the scenes with the two of them. And that to me often fell flat too. It didn't quite work.
Maybe once or twice.
Of
Clint's typical, snide remarks. But there was other times that it seemed like they were trying to make a point. Like there's a scene they stop at a cafe and they go in to have a drink, and Clint says, the kid orders a bottle of tequila, and Clint says, "You're not drinking tequila here." And he made it, the kid orders an orange crush, and Clint gets a beer, and he says, "I got to go out and make a phone call." And then Clint looks in the window and he sees the kid guzzle his beer.
Right.
And then he comes back, and I thought there was going to be a point there made.
I know.
But he
didn't say anything.
Just ignored it. And kept going.
Took a swig of his own drink.
Yeah. Why show that?
Right. That's what I mean. There was a couple of those shots where it's like, I think I'm supposed to take something away from that.
Yeah. I don't understand.
I have to take a quick little detour here because I saw my phone light up.
Yeah.
And so I'm multitasking, and I see it's a text from a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he says, I have to say this because we're in Halloween Fest, so this is relevant. So I'm going to thank him later for making a nice addition to the episode, which I think, do you have a bunch of horror stuff up there in the behind you, or is that?
No, this is mostly all Clint stuff.
You notice it's a little difficult to see, but I got a couple of my Funko Pops behind me.
Yeah.
I don't have this set up like I used to at the moment, but Mike got me this awesome like tin photo of Michael Myers from Halloween that I propped up back there. If you can make it out.
I just realize how small it is.
I'll put a shot of it in the video, and you'll see it right here. It'll pop up right here in the video.
Okay.
But that's super sweet. But anyways, he says, want an absolutely bonkers movie to watch? I saw Malignant last night, and wow. It's wild.
Yeah, I was going to suggest it too.
No, you didn't watch it, did you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you just said, yeah. So yeah, I think, okay, if, as you said, take it for what it is, go into it. You not expect, again, this is not Clinton Unforgiven. This is
any of these
Dirty
movies
Harry
behind me. It's none of those.
That's none of those. It's something entirely different, which on that level I appreciate, right?
Yeah.
He is delivering something different, and he's playing to his age.
Correct.
So I think that is a good point to make.
If you've seen Gran Torino, you know a little bit of what to expect, although
you kids get off my lawn.
Yeah, I like that more. He was more, that was kind of a racist kind of
yes,
grouchy Clint.
Well, since you made a recommendation already with the good, bad, and the ugly, I guess I'll stay with that, and we'll just keep it in the same vein. And I would say, for me, as awesome as Unforgiven is, right, won the Oscar. And Hail Rider is up there for me too. I always go back to The Outlaw Josie Wales. It's one of my favorite Clint Westerns. And, there's some of the poignant scenes, the emotion that he can deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Clint is more than capable of that. And he does that in Josie Wales, because
mm-hmm.
if you know the story of that film and sort of what happens in the first chunk of that movie, it's a pretty intense
mm-hmm.
sequence of events that happens, and so the acting in that from him is wonderful as well. But So I'd say The Outlaw Josie Wales. Give a couple of good Clint Western.
Yeah.
Now, what's in the box? The Clint box guy. For those that like, what did that set you back?
The 4K?
No, the Clint box behind you.
Oh,
for those that are listening and not
was like
watching.
30. Well, these are DVDs.
Right.
So there's about, I think there's about 37 of them in there.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like $30. It's not expensive.
Wow.
You could find it online and eBay.
Yeah.
Really cheap, brand new.
And what are the images that we see there on the box?
There is, like him, like from Unforgiven.
Okay.
It's different eras. One's like from Kelly's Heroes.
Kelly's Heroes. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right. With the army helmet or whatever. Yeah.
And then this is a Blu-ray box.
That's
Clint's.
nice. Yeah.
And then a few dollars more. Joe Kidd.
Yeah.
The trilogy.
Where's Josie Wales?
Trilogy. I don't have it up. I don't think.
Isn't that something? The one I mentioned, you don't have it.
I grabbed all Westerns too.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Again,
the High Plains Drifters up there.
Oh, there's another good one. Just to see him, don that gear again, even if it's of a washed up rodeo star, was still, again, you can't help but connect with your youth.
Yeah.
And come to terms with where you are now in your life and your mortality.
True.
I think that it goes hand in hand.
You're watching it. I don't know if you saw this on HBO. Maybe not. I don't know if you flipped through to see that they have some extras, like some
for this,
not for this, but it's like Clint, recaps of his career. And it's amazing to see him as Dirty Harry, so young, jumping off the bridge onto the bus, and such a good looking dude. I mean, you have to say that he's like, the perfect proportions. He doesn't work out, and the guy's in the best shape possible.
Oh, man.
Just
so great.
like, and his kid Scott looks just like him. I keep waiting for him to pop up and carve a path for himself, but he hasn't quite got there yet.
Well, who wants to walk in that shadow? I mean,
yeah, it's true. Lord, and it's tough because you see him and you're like, hey, it's Clint.
It's young Clint. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's true. It really is true. Well, all right. So this is a mixed bag here, folks, for Cry Macho. But look, I'm grateful to have more Clint.
Yeah.
It was to say that in 2021, I was able to go to the theater and see a film starring Clint Eastwood. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take that for what it is, like you said earlier. But I'm not recommending that you go out and spend your money at the theater to see this one. But it's a good take if you want to catch it on HBO Max.
Yeah. And I looked at like last time when I was looking at the theater to see how many people were in it. That was kind of my decision on when to go.
That's right. You told me this.
I looked at the 9:00 clincher. There was one seat taken. That was it.
Yes.
So that guy probably got a private screening.
Yeah. And my theater was very quiet too. It was me and there was nobody around me really at all. So,
and I don't know if, word got out or people just weren't interested. I don't think there was a big budget to the movie. And I think
it was like maybe 16 million.
Yeah. And there wasn't a big advertising budget at all.
Look at this, this headline from CNN.
Yeah.
Cry Macho is a weak addition to Clint Eastwood's 50-year filmography. Hey,
see, I can't say
CNN.
that.
Take it with a grain of salt,
And you know what I mean? We vowed never to pander to anyone, and
right.
I was thinking about that when we were going to sit down and talk about this, because I like Clint so much. Am I going to give him a pass if I don't like it?
Right.
But I won't go that far to say I didn't like it, because there's enough in it for me to say, hey, if you're a Clint fan, I'll recommend it. If not, skip it.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I think that's fair.
I think it's good to present both sides of it in this particular case, especially with someone like Clint, who it's usually like, it's a foregone conclusion. Like, I'm going to like whatever he's dishing out, so.
He's one of those few guys you go to the theater and you're going to like the movie.
Right.
It.
Yeah. So, again, we've talked about those that are bankable, it's money in the bank with
That's
Clint.
rare.
Yeah, and you're right. We won't pander. We would recommend you see the film Fat Man by the Nelms brothers. That's a great film. Again, we don't pander here on the Old Brother podcast.
No, we won't pander.
Anything else to say about Cry Macho before we
I
wrap
think
this one
up? We covered it.
Okay. Well, there you go.
That one scene is almost worth the price of admission.
And it's just too short.
So good.
It's just too short, but it really was striking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right, there you go. It's going to do it for another episode of the Yo Brother podcast. It's been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my amigo from the same mother, Mike Smith, and we will see you next time.
Buenos tardes, everyone.